Hey folks, so picked up a nice lot of Beatles records recently that I think it was just one of those at a garage sale ask type things, and the person said they thought they had some still left from the collection. They kept their Beatles stuff, but they got rid of pretty much everything else, and then told me to come back in a couple of hours and they would have them dug out. So, I went on, did my garage selling. I will have a separate video of the other garage sale stuff that I got coming up fairly soon. um, the reason I'm laughing is because anybody who follows the channel knows I'm pretty notorious for um, taking forever to get videos out. But yeah, I did in the end go back, and indeed they had pulled out this box for me to look at. And this is it. I started sleeving some of these already. They were all sort of jumbled up when I picked them up. But there were some, basically, if you're been collecting records for, over 20 years, the Beatles records are common. And it's one of the cases where the idea of value, especially for any collectible, but in vinyl, usually comes from three things. It's desirability, which any Beatles record has. That has a lot of desirability. Lots of people, especially people who are just starting collecting records again, want Beatles records. The other thing that adds to value is rarity. For the most part, Beatles records are not rare. There are some obvious exceptions, but they're just not rare. They were one of the biggest selling bands of all time. Their records were produced in the tens of millions. So they're not all that rare. And the third thing is condition. Condition is one of those things that early Beatles records are harder to find in good playable condition. You can find scratched up Beatles records all day long, pretty much anywhere you go. And that's, I talked to my mom. She grew up just outside of Liverpool back, before the British invasion. And, her friends used to just, they didn't take care of records. They just, they weren't something to take care of. It was, you played them, you had a dance, you threw it on the bed. And so you find them. Plus, they were also, back in the day, some of the record players were, not that good for playing records on. And so you ended up with ones that were kind of worn and things like that. However, there were collectors who also, took really good care of them. So if you have a desirable Beatles record, which most are, and it's in pretty good condition, you can get some okay money for it. It's not hundreds of dollars. People think, oh, I've got Beatles records from back when I was a kid and I'm, going to be able to retire on them. You're just not. Again, there are some exceptions to rules, obviously, but for the most part, your average Beatles record in decent shape sells, between 20, maybe $40, depending on how good a shape it is and depending which pressing it is. Again, obviously, first pressings are going to command the highest prices. Later pressings are going to not command higher prices. So that being said, I got some things in here that are a little harder to find, including some things that I'm probably going to end up keeping for my collection, but I'm not sure. This is one of them that I may end up keeping for my collection, but again, I'm not sure. It's a copy of the White Album, obviously, embossed cover, the numbered, everything like that. But the neat thing about this one is it is a Japanese pressing. Where'd the records go? They're back here. Okay, so the poster is slightly different. It's actually printed on, because those who know, every White Album came with a poster, and for usually glossy pictures, the production on each of them for the pressings was slightly different. Some have perforated edges, some are glossy, some are matte. But on this, you have a heavy poster from Japanese and slightly different pictures from the ones that I've seen, that I'm familiar with in sort of North American releases and UK releases. Fairly heavy and wide by looks of them. So neat to have. And then I'll show you. I put these in nicer sleeves. Let's show the label there. I don't know if you can see that. But it is right there at the bottom, manufactured by Toshiba. I think it's yeah. limited Japan. This is probably like a later 70s edition of the record, I think. I don't think it's a first Japanese pressing, but still pretty cool to have. This is another one that was kind of nice. It's the Beatles record in the, I think it was the late 70s or early 1980s, on this purple Capitol label. They pressed the white album, they reissued it on white vinyl, and that's what this is, which is another kind of interesting thing. And then more here, this is along the lines of, yeah, just the standard Capitol Canada purple label, so probably like a late 70s, 1980s pressing. It has the inserts and everything in there. I don't know if I showed you that one. We can see now that's what the later pressings of these look like. The posters on thinner paper, and the pictures are thinner and have perforated edges because oh, this one, yeah, there you go. They came in a one sheet like that, that you could tear up to have the individual pictures. This one hasn't, which is kind of nice, because I don't know if I have one of those like that. I'm gonna have to check that myself, but nice to have. Another copy on that Capitol purple. It has its inserts as well. And then there's another on the purple Capitol label. Again, not a desirable label. It's a later pressing, but they're in fairly nice condition, and it is a record that people do want when they start out collecting. The Beatles yesterday and today. This is a Canadian pressing, so not a butcher cover. There's no chance of it. There were no butcher covers issued out to the public on Canadian labels at all. There were some produced, but they never left executives' hands. So that's, yeah, if someone tells you they have a Beatles butcher cover and you look and it's a Canadian label, then you know it's not actually a butcher cover underneath, no matter what they say. This is a later pressing again on that Capitol label, 70s pressing. Beatles at the Hollywood Bowl, nothing special about it, but again, nice to have. This is Hey Jude, or what's the official name of it? The Beatles again. The first pressing of this came with a poster. This one doesn't, but it does. It is on the Apple label, which is kind of nice to have. Abbey Road on the red Canadian. Beatles Hard Days and Night. I think this is the Canadian pressing on the United Artists Black label. Actually, that might be US. There you go, US pressing. Kind of neat. This is kind of cool because it is a sealed copy. You can see it there, of the probably one of the most well-known Beatles compilations. They did this one is 62 to 66, which is in red, and then they did a 67 to the end of their career, basically, in blue. It's got the hype sticker on the front, which is kind of cool. Beatles Hard Days Night. It is a UK pressing. Actually, I didn't get the label out on that one, so you're not going to be able to see it. Help, another UK pressing. The Beatles Help, this is a Canadian one on that red label. Whoops, we almost lost them all there. Way to go, Jay. Let's move this out a bit more and get a bit of a lean. There is a mono rainbow Canadian copy of Help. A little harder to find those early ones. And most of these records, I went through them. You know, I haven't gone through them with like a fine tooth comb. I haven't washed or cleaned any of these, but they looked really good for the most part. So pretty happy with that. These are the early ones, Twist and Shout, and it's on the Canadian Capitol 6000 series label. It is a mono copy and on the Rainbow Capitol label there. Another one here. This one is in the original shrink, which is kind of nice to have. Another mono on the Capitol Rainbow. That's another mono, and also on the Capitol Rainbow. With the Beatles, another one on the Capitol 6000 label, for those who know. That is a mono copy. I think these are all mono copies. Yeah, all mono copies, I believe, all on the Capitol label. That's kind of nice because that is the Pathé, Angel, and Capitol Records inner sleeve. That's the original inner sleeve for most of the early Beatles records. So it's kind of fun to have that from a collecting standpoint too. They changed throughout the years, but those, I'm not going to profess to be an expert on how long they did it for, but I know for a lot of the early Beatles records, That was the thing, the inner sleeve. That's what it looked like. This one's in shrink, which is kind of nice. Beatles 65. There it is again, that Path A label. Sorry, not label. That'll be a capital rainbow label on there too, and that is mono as well. Here's another mono pressing on the capital rainbow. This has there's no price sticker on it, which is kind of nice. I always love seeing little things like that. Another rainbow mono copy, the Beatles 6 on the capital green, so it's a later reissue. Yeah, that's kind of cool. That is the stereo version of Rubber Soul. It's a later pressing, probably from the 80s, on that red capital. That is Revolver. Oh, this was kind of an interesting one because I haven't done a lot of looking, but I believe that this is one of the 90s reissues. Sometime in the 1990s, they reissued the entire catalog. It was for some sort of anniversary, maybe the 40th, I don't know, anniversary of the British invasion, maybe the 50th, I'm not 100%. But they reissued the entire catalog. And they're hard to find because any vinyl from the 90s is really tough to come by. There's another white album. Why didn't I do that there? It looks like it's a later reissue again. And then a bunch of Sgt. Pepper's. This one is a, I believe, Canadian mono. Let's see. Yeah, Canadian mono on the rainbow capital label, which is kind of a nice thing to have. John Lennon always said that if you haven't heard the mono pressing of the album, you didn't hear the album. You didn't hear Sgt. Pepper's the way that they wanted you to hear it, because that's how they helped with mastering. Apparently they didn't have much to do with the stereo mastering. So this is, yeah, a later, probably 70s, 80s pressing on the capital red or orange label. There's another Canadian mono. That'll be on the rainbow label. Stereo. Oh, this is, I've had this a couple of times over the years. This is, again, one of those ones, just like the white label, the white album. And it is on the purple label, but it is like a gray marbled vinyl. And then that's that one. That is a Canadian. Is it a Canadian? Oh, this is the one I suspect is American, but I'll have to look. It's on the Apple label. Kind of neat because it has that gold record certified thing on there. And then this is a stereo purple capital label. So that's it. So yeah, it was a nice lot of records to pick up. And again, just one more example of when you go to garage sales or any sale, if you're going to pick up anything, I'm talking like you go buy something off Marketplace that has nothing to do with records, ask, hey, do you have any records? Because a lot of times the people will turn around and say, no, but it's that one time when they turn around and say, yeah, I do actually, that you can end up getting, you know, a pretty decent lot. Not huge amounts of money to be made on here, but, you know, pretty cool. It's the kind of bread and butter stock that I love having in the store, and a lot of these are going to end up out in the store probably over the next 2 to 3 weeks, so don't come running in expecting all these to be out right away. If you're interested in them, wait for the weekly flip videos that I do for the store, and that's on the store page. The links to the store page are in this, will be in the description here, so if you're interested, go there. Yeah, I hope you guys are able to do some digging and find some cool stuff over the next, well, probably, I usually say 1 week till my next video, but who knows? Could be 2 weeks. I don't think I've gone as far as 3 yet, but if I have, that's the way life is sometimes. All right, y'all. Bye.